Good morning, everyone. It's the 2nd of September. As you can see in the background, it's about 5:30 here in the morning, Saturday morning. I hope you're having a good weekend so far, and I hope you enjoy your holiday, your Labor Day. I always found it interesting. They call it Labor Day, and then they take off from their labor. They cease from their labor. Anyway, we're ready for the 8th chapter of Mark. Probably one of the key verses in that chapter, 36th verse. What shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? You know, a lot of people put an awful lot of emphasis on materialism and riches in this world. And we know we have to have money to survive. We know, especially with the cost of gasoline and utilities and everything else, we have to have money to survive. But at the same time, we don't have to become filthy rich either. You know. Anyway, I wish we didn't even have to have the stuff. Frankly. But God has so ordained that we have money to pay for our bills. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples unto him and saith unto him, I have compassion on the multitude, and because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat, and I send them away fasting to their own houses, if I send them away fasting to their own houses, they will faint by the way, for divers of them came from far. And his disciples answered him, From whence can a man satisfy these men with bread here in the wilderness? And he asked them, How many loaves have you? And they said 7. And he commanded the people to sit down on the ground. And he took up the 7 loaves and gave thanks and brake and gave to his disciples to set before them, and they did set them before the people. And they had a few small fishes, and he blessed and commanded them to set them also before them, and they did eat. So they did eat, and were filled, and they took up of the broken meat that was left 7 baskets. They ended up with 7 baskets of meat left from a few small fishes. And when they had eaten were about 4,000. And he sent them away, and straightway entered into a ship with his disciples, and came into the part of Dalmanatha. And the Pharisees came forth and began to question with him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, tempting him. And he sighed in his spirit, saying, Why did this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall be no sign be given unto this generation. And he left them, and entering into a ship again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, neither had they in the ship with them more than 1 loaf. And he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and of the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. And when Jesus knew it, he saith unto them, Why reason ye because ye have no bread? Perceive ye not yet, neither understand? Have ye your heart yet hardened? Having eyes, see not ye not? Having ears, hear ye not? And do ye not remember when I brake the 5 loaves among 5,000? How many baskets full of fragments took ye up? They said unto him, 12. And when the 7 among 4,000, how many baskets full of fragments took ye up? And they said 7. And he said to them, How is it that ye do not understand? And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and he led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that he put his eyes again upon his eyes, and made him look up, and he was restored, and he saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, Neither go into the town, nor to any in the town. And Jesus went out and his disciples into the towns of Caesarea Philippi, and by the way he asked his disciples, saying unto them, Who do men say that I am? And they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elias, and others one of the prophets. And he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Peter answered and saith unto him, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spake that saying openly, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, for he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. But when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world, and lose his own soul? Or what shall man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of his Father with his holy angels. Well, it's never ceased to amaze me how that even after the disciples seeing these wonderful miracles that Christ did, they still were concerned over not having enough bread. And that's kind of been, I'd have to say that I'd have to lay the same charge against myself. After seeing how many times God has rescued me, how many times he's been faithful down through the years in providing for me and my family, how I still worry about having enough bread. And it just shows our lack of faith in the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, doesn't it? And also how quickly we forget the wonderful things God has done for us to deliver us from these things that we have to go through down here in this world. I used to keep a journal, and whenever I would get discouraged, I'd go back in my journal and read the times that God intervened for me. And we need to be reminded of the great things God's done for us, not only physically but spiritually. How many times he's brought us out of poor health, how many times he's raised us back up to restore our physical lives, how many times he's made provision for us materially, how many times when we've been down in the doldrums, he's revived our hearts and our spirits to hope in him. He was concerned about all these people because they had nothing to eat, and he was concerned, and he wanted to give provision for them. That shows his loving heart, does it not? And then also he was concerned about those who were in physical distress. He was concerned about this blind man they brought to him, and he restored his sight. And look how many other people he healed. and how many of the multitudes that would touch even his garment, and they would be restored. Well, and also we see another account of Peter getting in the flesh, and he had to rebuke Peter. Peter tried to say that Christ didn't know what he was talking about when Christ said that he was going to be he would suffer many things and would be rejected of the elders and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And Peter began to rebuke Christ, rebuking the Son of God after revealing to Christ. He said, "Thou art the Christ," but then he began to rebuke him when Christ started telling him what was going to happen. How many times do we rebuke Christ in ways that show our lack of believing what Christ's words say? When Christ says, "All that the Father hath given me will come to me, and all that come to me I will in no wise cast out." How many times do we disbelieve that? How many times do we disbelieve that for he's chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, and that he's blessed us with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places? How many times do we disbelieve that? We all have times of despondency in our lives when we don't necessarily like what's going on in lives, what we're having to go through. But Christ is faithful. And Christ was faithful to Peter even after Peter denied him 3 times. And so there's a lesson here for us. I hope you all have a good weekend. May the good Lord be with you today in a special way. God bless.